Hi, it's Jennifer McGuire with Two Peas in a Bucket. I just wanted to show you a few more techniques with the paint dabbers from Ranger. It's an acrylic paint. Here are the three cards. There's three different techniques, so they all have a little bit of a different look. First, I'm going to start with Paint Resist. This is actually on dark paper I'm going to start with. I will do light later. And the little piece behind the felt button there has two different colors of resist. So let me show you what I did here. First of all, this is a set from Hero Arts, and I just like how they have these little sets that go together, and I thought I'd use this flower one because for this I wanted you to see what detailed line and solid lines look like. So I'm going to take this stamp and ink it up with my Big and Bossy embossing ink from Ranger and do this on a dark cardstock. I'm doing a dark teal cardstock. You may notice that my Big and Bossy ink pad is got some black contaminated over on the clear side. That's thanks to my son who likes to stamp with me, but it doesn't matter. It may be stained, but it still stamps just fine. So this is clear embossing powder that I'm going to put over the stamped area. So I'm just going to cover it up. I like to keep my clear and my white embossing powders in Tupperwares like this with a spoon because they last forever that way because there's virtually no waste. It really works out well for me too. I haven't had to buy a new bottle in quite some time. So now I'm going to heat this up with my heat gun. After I do this, I'm going to take paint from my paint dabber. It's just an acrylic paint, and I'm going to dab different shades of green across this. I use citrus, willow, and lettuce for this. So I'm just dabbing directly onto the embossed image. You can see it's starting to resist already. Now by mixing these colors like this, it will give kind of a shadowy, dimensional look as opposed to just a flat color. You could do this with just one shade. I just wanted to add shades just for some extra interest. So this is a piece of cut and dry from Ranger, and the white side is a foam, and it's perfect for applying these inks because you can either swipe it across or dab it. I like to pounce like this when I'm mixing colors together, so you can see the color variation there. So now one of the things I like to do is after I've covered the paint, I like to go back with either a light shade or a dark shade and do kind of a line of paint like that, and then go back and dab it so it just gives some dimension along the center. It's hard to see in the video, but in person there's quite a difference. Now this is a baby wipe. I wanted to show you that you could remove a lot of this paint with a baby wipe and get that washed out look you see there. But I'm going for more contrast, so I'm just going to go back and put some paint on top. I just wanted to show you that real quick. So I'm going back and putting some more paint on here, dabbing it with my cut and dry. Now I'm going to let this dry a little bit. I didn't heat it with the heat gun. I just set it aside and let it dry. And now this is just a paper towel. I usually use an old t-shirt, but to be quite honest, I don't know where I put it. So this is just a paper towel I'm spritzing some water on so that there's just a little bit of moisture. And then I'm going to wipe it away, and this removes the paint from the embossed areas, giving a resist and lets the dark show through. This is one I did when I was at Ranger U, and that's black cardstock underneath with clear embossing, and then I put green on top so you can see the great contrast you can get. And here's a difference between doing on dark brown cardstock and on dark blue cardstock, so you can get a totally different look. But it's the same green paint on both. And here's a close-up of the card with the blue on the top and the brown on the bottom. Next I wanted to show you doing the same technique but with a light background. Again, it just gives you a totally different look. Here I used some copper and gold paint so I could get this metallic-y resist. Again, I'm starting with the Big and Bossy and my favorite flourish stamp from Hero Arts. This Big and Bossy makes it quick and easy to emboss with because it's a nice large ink pad, and I'm just having to ink up the four corners of this large stamp, easy to do, and then I'm going to stamp it to cover the front of this piece. And now I'll go ahead and emboss that with my clear embossing powder again. Now I'm going to heat this and give it some time to cool, and here I have my gold and my copper paint dabbers, and I'm going to do these swirls of paint along the background. So you can see like there's my lines of gold. Now I'm going to go back with some lines of copper. I just found that by grouping some of the color together like this in lines or in splotches helps to add dimension instead of doing, evenly distributed splotches of color. It kind of all blends together in the end and you don't see the variations. Again, I'm dabbing it with cut and dry. Once I've let it dry some, not with a heat gun, but just with time, I'm going back with a wet paper towel and taking off some of the paint. And this will remove it just from the embossed areas. So you'll see the light paper underneath come through. Now you can remove as much as you want, and I decided to leave some of it. And here it is, and I actually stamped a greeting over it so you can see the variations of color. I also thought I'd show you how you can do paint resist on fabric. Fabric is great to use on cards because it's flat, and in scrapbook pages because it's flat, but it offers great texture. So I took this piece of just canvas and this Hero Art stamp. This is one of my favorites. It offers a flourish that you can add flowers to or use for anything. Now this is just some inexpensive canvas that I had left over from a project that I had been working on with my son. The best way to cut fabric is to put a little cut in the side and then tear it, and look at the perfect frayed edge that you can get, and it always tears straight, so you don't have to spend any time cutting it perfectly. So I'm going to take this stamp from Hero Arts and ink it up with the Big and Bossy embossing ink, and then I'm going to stamp that. You can see it's real sticky ink, and I'm going to stamp that firmly onto the fabric. Now you won't be able to see it much at all, but that's okay. You're going to take your either clear or white embossing ink, because this is a kind of an off-white background. Putting white embossing powder on top is fine, but I think I'm using clear here. Either would work just fine. So you can see that the powder is on the fabric. Now you want to flick it off really good before you heat it with the heat gun so that any powder trapped in the little threads won't stay there. Now it takes extra long to heat it with the heat gun, but that's okay. It will work just fine. Now this is one of my favorite Ranger Dabber colors. It's called Stream, and I always store them upside down. I'm going to use the cut and dry, and I'm going to cover this very heavily with this Stream paint. Now you can leave some of the canvas to show through, but for this effect I wanted to make it look like this fabric was always blue. So here you can see how some of it resists through. Some of the stamped images is resisting through, and I was just wiping off with a baby wipe. Now I'm going to go back and cover the whole piece with lots of paint. So here's a close-up. You can see that flourish in there. Even though it's got flowers on it, it works great for waves along with this little sailboat. Now I thought I'd show you how I do some coloring sometimes with Distress ink. It's kind of a cheating way to color some stamped images. I also have gotten questions about these foam pieces and the blue peeling off. If you tuck your thumb underneath that blue when you go to remove it, instead of just grabbing the foam, it'll come right off. You can see there I put my thumb underneath the blue and it pulls right off. So that should prevent it from ever tearing. Okay, now this is a Hero Arts stamp from a baby boy stamp set, but if you take a close look, there's a lot of images there that would work for any kind of any themed card. Now this is a fast way to color a stamped image. I'm just inking it with my ink applicator and Distress ink. Now I didn't heat gun this stamped image before I started applying the ink, so that black is kind of smearing. I wanted to do that to give it kind of a smudgy, soft look. If I didn't want that, I could have heated it with a heat gun to let it dry right away before adding this color. So you can see I'm putting some green on it and some blue and some brown, and you can see it really colors quite nicely, and you can do shading quite easily. I also wanted to show you quickly how you can add white highlights with the Ranger Ink Essentials pen. This is my favorite white pen. The great thing is if you write slowly, it does solid white lines, but if you write quickly like I am here, it kind of is splotchy and just gives you a little bit of highlight. So you can write solid or write thin. It's up to you. Anyways, here's the final result. Thanks for watching another video for Two Peas in a Bucket.